Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. It's been a minute, you know what I'm saying? But now we're here to talk about how the Washington Commanders are expected to show interest in both wide receiver Debo Samuel and Cooper Kupp. They may be trying to get at least one of the two. We're going to dive into which of the two we would prefer, why not. We're going to talk about trade packages, contracts, like who's the most expensive, all of that type of stuff. And since I'm technically recording this at 12 a.m., I'm going to count this as February 10th. I have a trivia question for you at the end of this video. I'll give you the answer at the end. Name the 3 different quarterbacks to start games for the Commanders in 2022. Ah, come on, man. We all know that. That's too fresh. But either way, before we dive into this video, make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, and still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up and supporting every video. I've been super busy, but I promise y'all I'm about to get back on it. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Make sure you're pulling up back to the channel consistently because I'm liable to put out like 2-3 videos a day again with all of the content. I can't wait to get to y'all. And I will eventually have a live stream for y'all as well. A call-in show live stream. We can reflect on the season. We can talk about with free agents and draft picks you want to prioritize. All of that type of stuff. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let y'all know like days in advance when we'll do that. But without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with wide receiver Cooper Kupp, currently of the Los Angeles Rams. And mind you, both of these players we're going to talk about today, you have to trade for. You have to trade for them. Neither of these guys are free agents, even though in Cooper Kupp's situation, we're about to dive into that soon. Maybe you can wait until he's a free agent because the Rams seem like they want to get rid of Cooper Kupp more than the 49ers want to get rid of Debo Samuel. But don't get it confused. The 49ers do seem ready to move on from Debo Samuel at least a little bit. But Cooper Kupp is the most likely that you may be able to just get for free as a free agent if the Rams just say, man, everybody's lowballing us. Nobody's going to give us anything for him. We'll just cut him, I guess. But either way, starting off, and we're going to do this with Debo Samuel as well, we got to talk about what are even these sources that are saying this. Well, for the Cooper Kupp one, the source is just NFL trade rumors. Also saw it on another Twitter account, but it wasn't like some NFL insider from ESPN or anything like that. But the report is that the Commanders are expected to show trade interest in Rams Cooper Kupp. Not like the most reliable, most trustworthy source, the most insider source possible. We're not talking Adam Schefter. We're not even talking about Jeremy Fowler or Don Graziano or any of these guys, or Ian Rappaport. We're not talking about any of those guys when it comes to this rumor, but I can see it making sense. You even have Tony Camino of NFL Trade Rumors. They listed 5 potential trade destinations for Cooper Kupp. For us, they said Washington has transcended into a trending destination following his trip to the NFC Championship behind first-round quarterback Jaden Daniels. The Commanders have plenty of salary cap space, $78.1 million. It doesn't matter where you look, it's always a different number. They're all like in the same range, but depending on where you look, the number is completely different every time you see it. It's crazy. Again, like I told y'all, I believe in my previous video, last year I think we found out like February 23rd exactly what the cap space will be for every team in the NFL. So by then, we will have like an official number that everybody agrees upon. But right now, everywhere you look, you're going to see a different number, but it's all in the same ballpark of like between in the high 70s to the low 90s basically, or whatever. But the point is also, more importantly, we're third in cap space regardless of where you look. Either way though, continuing, and questions to answer receiver with Olamide Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, Jameson Crowder, and KJ Osborne all hitting free agency, mind you. All of those guys I just listed are free agents. We don't have really any wide receivers currently on the roster under contract. It's really like Terry McLaurin, Luke McCaffrey, and that's really just almost about it. Terry McLaurin is going nowhere after he went for 1,323 yards while running almost all of his routes on the outside. Kupp would fit in seamlessly in the slot in offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury's offense, which could get him advantageous matchups in space. As a reliable veteran, Kupp would bring a lot of the same elements to the offense that tight end Zach Ertz did and give Washington another weapon to attack the middle of the field if Ertz is brought back. That's a solid point too. We're going to talk about this later, but a lot of people thought that Zach Ertz, especially with his recent injury history before this past 2024 season joining with the Commanders, a lot of people looked at him as like, maybe we'll get a few games out of him since he's up there in age. He can't typically stay healthy. Maybe we'll just get a few games, but I would have never thought that I would be really excited about bringing back Zach Ertz for the 2025 season if you would have asked me this time last year back in 2024 to just look ahead forward to like the next season, not the upcoming season, but the season after that, and project I want Zach Ertz back, and I believe he could play every game in the season. Never would have thought that. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but maybe you can see Cooper Kupp having the same revelation coming here. Now suddenly he's healthy. Now suddenly he's very productive and consistent again. He looks like he's back in his prime almost. That's what happened with Zach Ertz. A lot of people believe that maybe it's us. Maybe we got the sauce and we can find the fountain of youth for Cooper Kupp as well, like we did with Zach Ertz. Finishing up, the lack of a real number 2 receiver didn't hold Washington back this past year, but long term, it's probably an area the Commanders need to fortify to take the next step. Adding Kupp with Daniels and McLaurin could help Washington repeat their success this past year. And then also next up, okay, so now we have a reputable source. I just found that Jeremy Fowler of ESPN did say that we are one of the teams that are expected to show interest in Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, who is 31 years old, is said to be the type of first one in, last one out worker who resonates with a new team. So basically, he's like a culture fit. Let's dive into it. Shouts out to Rico's Rack for pointing this out. Cooper Kupp's work ethic should fit into the Commanders' culture shift well. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN stated that Kupp's exceptional work ethic and proven credentials would fit in Washington's impressive culture shift under the new regime. The respected insider believes the Commanders might make a move given their need to find a capable complementary piece to put alongside Terry McLaurin. Now let's get to the exact Jeremy Fowler quote and source. Now this is a reputable source. This is a trustworthy. If Jeremy Fowler says it, maybe there actually is some fire where there is some smoke. NFL trade rumors, shouts out to them, but a lot of the stuff they put out there, you're not exactly sure if it's real or not. But Jeremy Fowler, this is one of those guys, he has a face on the things that he's saying. He has an image to uphold. He has a reputation to uphold. And so he's not just going to throw things out there willy-nilly. Plus, this is kind of a loose rumor anyway. Like, even if the Washington Commanders don't sign Cooper Kupp, it's not like he loses any sort of reputation points, any value in his word because we didn't end up trading. All he said was, the Washington Commanders are expected to at least be interested and maybe look into the situation. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of teams that at least call the Rams and see what's going on. That would count. Either way, though, Jeremy Fowler's exact quote, execs predict Rams receiver Cooper Kupp will have a trade market because he's quarterback friendly, makes contested catches, and is the type of first one in, last one out worker who resonates with a new team. Questions about age, 31, declining production, lower body explosiveness, and injuries loom, but he can still play. He caught 67 balls for 710 yards and 6 scores this season while missing 5 games. The contract is an issue though. Cooper Kupp is due $20 million in 2025, and all but $5 million of that is guaranteed in the form of a roster bonus. The Rams will likely be willing to eat some of the contract to facilitate a trade. The Commanders could be looking for a complimentary receiver to Terry McLaurin, unquote. Again, that's a Jeremy Fowler source, and I tend to believe him. I'm not just going to assume everything 100% what he says is factual, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders actually are at least pondering the idea, thinking about it. I mean, I feel like Adam Peters would honestly it would be due diligence if he didn't consider every possibility possible. So I feel like it's kind of obvious. I don't feel like it's necessarily breaking news. Oh, the Commanders may be interested in at least look into the Cooper Kupp situation. Again, in my opinion, I feel like all 31 other NFL teams should at least think about it, brainstorm, maybe have a meeting about it, even if you don't go as far as to call the Rams about trade packages. I'm pretty sure we're one of the teams that would at least call and see, like, what are y'all thinking as far as what you want in return. But maybe with as much as he gets hurt, maybe he needs to tone it down a little. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he should work a little less hard, because they're talking about his work ethic being first one in, last one out. Maybe he should do that a little less. Maybe he should be in the middle as far as going in and leaving relatively early, not to put as much pain and mileage on his body as he has been in seasons. Maybe that's why he's been getting hurt towards the ends of seasons, because he's working so hard and putting on extra mileage and practices in the offseason and things like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I love the first one in, last one out mentality. That sounds like something Dan Quinn would eat up. But at the same time, man, maybe that's the reason he keeps getting hurt. Who knows? Which takes me to my first Cooper Kupp discussion. And basically, the main reason people aren't just screaming for us to please trade and go get him. Please trade for this guy. Let's talk about it. Of course, you have the healthy situation, the injuries. Well, Cooper Kupp has played 33 of the Rams' 54 games the past 3 seasons. The past 3 seasons, playoffs included, in 33 games, 212 catches, 2,376 yards, and 18 touchdowns. Not the impact blocker he was earlier in his career either. Shouts out to Chad Forbes for this. Wear and tear has caught up with Kupp, due $20 million in 25 and turns 32 in June. He'll be 32 before the season starts. He's 31 right now, but you got to think of him as a 32-year-old when you're thinking about, okay, when the season officially starts and he'll be out there running routes for us, potentially in a burgundy and gold uniform, how old would he actually be? And this is a guy, again, that has only played 33 of the 54 possible games that the Rams have played the last 3 seasons. That's not good. That's somewhere around maybe like 60%. And I mean, maybe the Rams make the offer enticing though, because they already know that just sounds ridiculous. So there's already been a report from Ian Rappaport, and I definitely believe this source, that the Rams are willing to eat a chunk of wide receiver Cooper Kupp's salary, nearly $40 million over the next 2 years, to help facilitate a trade. Just like Jeremy Fowler basically guessed and projected, like, hey man, if they want to trade this guy, they're gonna have to eat some of that salary. Now Ian Rappaport came behind him and said, yes, the Rams have even acknowledged it and said to Ian Rappaport, or whatever his sources are, that we are willing to eat some of his salary just to get him off the team. And then it kind of makes you got to look at him sideways, like they're willing to pay you to not be on their team. Why would we be willing to pay you to actually be on the team and out there playing football for us? It makes me question it a little bit. But there's reports from Ian Rappaport as well that the Rams want to get a trade done immediately. So be on the watch out. The Cooper Kupp, wherever he ends up going, could end up happening very soon. And I'm not sure if Adam Peters is willing to make a trade that quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if he waits until free agency, unless it's somebody like Myles Garrett. He may wait and try to see who he can get without trading, having to give up trade value for in free agency. All I gotta do is pay him money. I don't have to give a team trade and draft picks to get this guy. And then, like, okay, say we don't get T. Higgins, we don't trade for Garrett Wilson, we don't get any of the top receivers like a Chris Godwin if healthy, or even Amari Cooper. Then maybe at that point, maybe he's like, well, all right, let's go get Cooper Kupp with like a really late draft pick, or maybe we just wait until he's cut or something like that. I don't see us being one of the teams in on Cooper Kupp if a trade does happen anytime soon. That's just me personally. But the Rams being willing to eat up a lot of his salary does make a huge difference. I mean, only having to pay Kupp like half of his salary does make him more appealing. I mean, he's only going to play half the games anyway, so I feel like we only should have to play him half of the money that he's owed. So I feel like, hey, man, that kind of evens out. So a lot of people are thinking maybe we should trade like a 6th-round pick for Cooper Kupp, and I'm definitely asking y'all in the chat, do y'all feel like that is fair? Well, shouts out to Bram Weinstein and Mike Carlisle, because they talked about on the potential fit with Cooper Kupp on the Washington Commanders. And Bram Weinstein said, I think Cooper Kupp would be a massive upgrade for what we have currently opposite of Terry, but I'm not too bullish about it in general. And then you have Mike Carlisle say, it's really weird when a team like the Rams that are so offensively focused with Sean McVay, they come out this fast and say they're trying to trade him. I think it's just a little bit of a red flag for me. And I completely agree with that. They're willing to pay him to not be on the team. We will pay some of your 2025 and maybe even some of your 2026 salary just to not even be here. We want you gone that bad. Which makes me think that maybe his value has depreciated even further than we thought. So we really got to watch out for that. It's definitely a red flag. Like, why do the Rams not want him? And not only not want him in general, but they're trying to get rid of him immediately. They're like, hey, we'll pay you to take him. Like, we'll even pay him some of the salary. You don't have to pay him at all. And we're trying to get this trade done immediately. Like, I don't know, is there something that could potentially come out later on to where, like, it's really bad news for Cooper Kupp later? Maybe something off the I don't know. It is a little scary, though. Little sketchy. But shouts out Robert Griffin III. He said the Washington Commanders should trade for Cooper Kupp. His point is that Cooper Kupp owns the middle of the field, moves the chains. He's a quarterback's best friend. Perfect for Jaden Daniels going into year 2 with Scary Terry's speed on the outside. I think that is a fair point. And then Chris Sims even said that if you do sign Cooper Kupp, you better be ready to get a top tier wide receiver 3 based off of the tape that he saw in this past 2024 season. A De'Ami Brown type of guy is literally who he compared him to. And that's cool, but that's not what people are thinking when we bring up the name Cooper Kupp. When you say the Commanders may potentially trade for Cooper Kupp, people are thinking wide receiver 2 at worst, maybe even a 1B to Terry. He's not that. He is at best right now maybe a really good wide receiver 3 that you may not even depend on to be able to be healthy throughout the entire season. We saw how our offense was affected when Noah Brown got hurt. Then KJ Osborne didn't contribute anything. Then we had moments where Austin Eckler was hurt. Availability and durability is pretty big on my must-have list for guys that I'm looking for in this upcoming 2025 offseason, whether it be free agency, whether we're trading for a guy, even the draft. I'm looking at durability big time, because especially off of the season that we just had with Jaden Daniels having to just work with what he had at his disposal at times with a lot of the injuries that we were suffering. It was weird. And then shouts out to at Commanders Realm. He brings up a good point. He said, I'm a big Cooper Kupp fan, but I feel like he's a guy you either let hit the market or allow the Rams to sell at bargain after the bulk of free agency has passed. Again, my point, don't be too quick to rush into this. You could probably wait until like late in March, maybe even early April heading into the draft to go ahead and maybe trade for him then if you really feel like you need to trade for him, and then you could probably be able to lowball him and only trade for maybe a 7th round pick or something for like I don't think you should even have to give up a 6th round pick for this guy. And again, maybe if you wait long enough, with as bad as they want him gone, maybe they'll just release him at a certain point. Maybe they'll just cut him and just say it is what it is. And finishing up what Commanders Realm said, we need a number 2, but if he's going to be older than Terry, I'd rather not pay him until he's cut or LA gets desperate. I completely agree. Then you have Dean Jones of Rico's Rag that brings up a couple of good points. They said Kupp isn't getting any younger, but he's still got some juice left in the tank. The pass catcher suffered some injury problems in recent years. That said, he knows how to create separation effortlessly and is an absolute menace across the short to intermediate routes. That's exactly the type of receiver the Commanders should look for this offseason. They have a number 1 alpha in McLaurin. That won't be enough, especially with all of the guys that we already named are entering free agency and might not return. This will be nothing more than a short-term option for the Commanders, obviously, and that could be off-putting depending on the compensation attached, but their window is open right now. Peters must pivot accordingly, finding reinforcements to help immediately while keeping one eye on the future. And I feel like this is a good time to take a pause and make you realize, when you're trading away draft picks, think about the fact that draft pick, who knows how good they'll actually end up being, how well they'll perform on the field. But a rookie right now, at worst, you have him on contract for the next 4 years on a very cheap deal. Whereas Cooper Kupp, you're giving up that trade pick, the rights to draft a player that you will have on your team for the next 4 years on a very cheap deal. In return, you're getting Cooper Kupp, who's fairly expensive, not to the level of all of the elite wide receivers in the NFL, but compared to a rookie contract, he's pretty, especially the draft pick that he'll probably go for, if he does even go for a draft pick, 6th or 7th round, he's definitely more expensive than that. And he's only, you only have on contract for 2 years, and who knows if his body even holds up for those 2 years. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about, it's just a 6th round draft pick, but yeah, it's a 6th round guy that will be drafted by this really front office and coaching staff and Adam Peters, where I feel like they can find starting talent no matter the round. You would be giving that up 4 years of a potential impact rookie for a Cooper Kupp. That's why I'm maybe if he becomes a free agent, I'll look into it, but I don't want to give up a draft pick. It's different. If we have Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew and those guys leading our scouting and our talent evaluation, and they were the ones drafting, then yeah, sure, go ahead and give up a 6th or a 7th, because they're probably going to throw it away on somebody that doesn't matter anyway. But with Adam Peters, I feel like every draft pick matters, but that's just me. There's so many factors that play into this. Continuing on, Kupp is a win-now trade. Fowler's revelation regarding Los Angeles' potential willingness to eat some of his money helps, although that will probably come with a higher draft pick if they do so. What the Commanders must figure out is whether the All-Pro can move the needle enough to get over the hump. We got to remember, he is a All-Pro, recently, not too long ago. Other opinions will be considered. Free agency should have capable weapons to upgrade the options at Jaden Daniels' disposal. The Commanders can also go down the draft route, but unproven commodities at the next level come with more risk. I can see that. And this is not a very deep receiver class, pretty top heavy. If the decision is to sacrifice a draft pick for Kupp, he's a good scheme fit and a tremendous professional. Whether this scenario becomes reality or not remains to be seen. And then you also have Jonathan Ive of Rigo's Rag, the same website, same company, with basically like an opposing point of view. Whereas Dean Jones felt like maybe we should try it. Here are the positives. This guy right here is like, I don't know. The former third-round pick played in 33 of a possible 51 games over the last 3 seasons. Kupp has missed at least 5 games in each of those years. Players do not get healthy as they get older. But then again, Zach Ertz is an example of how, hey, I don't know, maybe we got some voodoo going on over here. Maybe our medical staff is that great. Our physical therapy team, whatever we got going on, maybe it's that elite, but maybe we could do the Cooper Kupp what we did with Zach Ertz. But I wouldn't necessarily bank on that. I wouldn't expect that. Continuing with the article from Rigo's Rag, his catch percentage dropped below 70% in each of the last 2 years. That is the lowest it has been since his rookie season. Kupp had the fewest first downs of any year other than his second this season, and that's when he missed half the campaign. His yards per catch were the lowest of his career as well. So this is a declining player no matter how you look at it. Health, efficiency, even when he is on the field, like on a per game basis, basically taking away health. Health doesn't matter. This is not included in the equation. When you're just talking about when he is out there, how effective and efficient is he per game, and he's even been like career lows at that. Kupp would easily be the second best receiver on the Commanders from the moment he stepped onto the field, yes. But the things he was so good at, finding open spots, converting third downs, securing yards after the catch, all are diminishing. His rate on successful plays based on a formula related to down and distance was also the lowest of his career in the 2024 season. As with health, players do get more productive once they pass 30, and Kupp could be a valuable asset for the Commanders, providing the asking price isn't too high. But Washington still needs to groom a young, dangerous weapon to succeed McLaurin. I completely agree. I don't like looking beyond and what's next after McLaurin is done, or maybe he's not as effective right now. I'm completely focused on we need to win right now with McLaurin. Let's go get some Super Bowls. But that's a good point. We do need to start bringing in some young wide receiver 1 potential guys, and Cooper Kupp is nowhere near that. That is completely a let's win a Super Bowl next year, or at worst the year after that type of decision. You're trying to win a Super Bowl in 2025 if you go and get this guy. So now, trade scenario wise, there was a trade package thrown out there where the Rams get 2025 6th round pick and a 2026 6th round pick that could turn into a 4th or 5th, so a conditional, and then the Commanders get Cooper Kupp and the lowest of the Rams 3 2025 6th round picks. So it's basically like a 6th round pick swap, essentially. And then we will basically be trading Cooper Kupp straight up for a 6th round pick that could potentially turn into a 4th or a 5th. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not going to lie. I'm good on that trade, super duper. Again, I'll only take them if it's for free as a free agent, or after the Rams cut him, or at worst, maybe I consider giving up a 7th round pick. But even then, I don't know. I'm still uncomfortable with a 7th round pick. It's one of those things where if I saw a headline that the Commanders officially did it, we traded for Cooper Kupp for a 7th round pick, then I'm like, okay, I can see the bright side of it. But before the trade happens, I think I'm good on it. But shouts out to George Carmi. He brings up some good points. He says, I get why there is apprehension for Cooper Kupp, but at the right price, he'd be a good pickup. Playoff experience, leadership, film junkie, safety blanket for a quarterback, slot wide receiver to complement Terry, and a great run blocker. Seems like Peters, a guy that Peters would be interested in. Good points. And then you also have my boy Rant Burgundy over there on Twitter. He said, I definitely think there's interest, and they have shown to take washed guys and find a niche for them. Plus, he will be cheaper to acquire than others. I want Kupp plus somebody else, either LB3 in the draft, Luther Burden, or Garrett Wilson / George Pickens. So he's like, even if you go and get Cooper Kupp, let's also make sure that does not stop you from trading for a George Pickens or a Garrett Wilson, or even getting like Luther Burden in the first round or something like that. Cooper Kupp should not prevent you from still looking for another top tier receiver. He would be your wide receiver 3 essentially. And again, he brings up the point that we bring over washed guys. Like according to everybody, Zach Ertz he got cut by the Cardinals. Like, he was just a pure free agent. It wasn't like we had to trade for him. It's not like we had to steal him from other teams. We were one of the only teams that was willing to give Zach Ertz a try. And then he went out there and had the season that he just had. Maybe we can have the same effect on Cooper Kupp. That's like the super glass half full view on it. And then also shouts out to George Carmi again. He said Zach Ertz had been injury prone prior to joining Washington. Dan Quinn managed his body well. He never practiced on Wednesdays all season, and then Ertz played in all 20 games. If you think that we can have that same effect on Cooper Kupp, then maybe I can see it, maybe. And then you even have Mike Chiari of Bleacher Report saying Cooper Kupp trade rumors and the market is complicated for Rams wide receiver ahead of NFL free agency. I'm not surprised that the trade market is a little complicated. And basically a lot of people are worried about his age. It's a long article, but the synopsis of it, because we're already 25 minutes in, we haven't even started talking about Deebo. But since Cooper Kupp will turn 32 in June, his injury pass and even the contract as well, a lot of people are looking at him crazy right now as like, I don't know, we'll just probably wait and lowball these guys and see if they just end up cutting them. So that was the most recent report. That's why I saved that for last as far as Cooper Kupp goes, because basically everybody's looking around like, I don't know, if you don't trade for him, I won't trade for him. Let's force the Rams to cut him, and then we can try to compete to see where he ends up wanting to go and who can have the best chance of signing him as a free agent. But I think everybody's looking at each other like, I'm not trading for Cooper Kupp if you don't, type of thing. And then also, before we move on to Debo Samuel, super random, but Matthew Stafford said that he's reportedly not happy with the upcoming Cooper Kupp trade and that he would be fine with being traded to a winning team. And I even saw some reports about the Giants lately that basically Matthew Stafford is upset about the whole Cooper Kupp situation. Just in case if you didn't know, Cooper Kupp does not want to be traded, whereas Debo Samuel requested to be traded. We're going to get to him soon. And then the 49ers were basically like, well, all right, well, you want to be traded, I guess go ahead and look. Whereas Cooper Kupp clearly wants to stay with the Los Angeles Rams, and he's heartbroken. He had a whole Twitter post about it, about the fact that they want to trade him, they want to move on from him. And Matthew Stafford is basically like, that's my dog right there. You trade him, I'm not happy about that. I may be willing to leave as well. You trade my dog, you might as well go ahead and trade me too. And so now, moving on to the whole Debo Samuel situation. And first of all, remember, Debo Samuel asked the 49ers to trade him back on April 20th, 2022. So this is not the first time that he's done this. And then now, just as recently as a couple of days ago, he's asked to be traded again. Shouts out to Leo Luna for pointing out the fact that Debo Samuel has been frustrated with his role. And if you're looking at his targets plus attempts the last 3 seasons, 2022 he had 136 targets with 864 scrimmage yards. 2023 he had 126 targets, 1,117 scrimmage yards. And then 2024 he had 123 targets with only 806 scrimmage yards. Opportunity is there, but the 49ers have more effective pass game options at wide receiver, tight end, and running back than Debo. That's coming from a 49ers fan / reporter. Mind you, he played in 15 games this past season and still only put up 106 scrimmage yards total. This man played in 15 games. So with Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk missing a lot of the games of the past season, so I mean, that's crazy that there were so many opportunities for him to ball out. He just never sees them. He had all of these top playmakers, guys that require the ball in their hands a lot, and he still couldn't ball out. So shouts out to Matt Lively for pointing out the fact that it was against the Rams. The score was 3-3. It was the third quarter with 8 minutes and 32 seconds left, and this guy dropped a wide open slant that probably would have went for so many yards at a pivotal point in this game. Matt Lively pointed out the fact that that play was probably the turning point for Debo Samuel that year, last season. His approach with the media was different after this, especially coming off of this not enough touches tweet. Fans booed him immediately after this drop, and I'm sure he heard it loud and clear. So that was probably the moment where he was like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here. And granted, he has nobody to blame but himself. But after the way that the fans reacted, I know he felt down on himself. And even 49ers reporters were saying after that game, after he had that huge drop, he didn't even talk the same way towards us. He was more closed off, disrespect, all types of stuff. So he's just mentally gone ever since that moment. And then Bonta Hill even said it was reported that Debo Samuel had an outstanding training camp and was in tip-top shape before this past season started. However, it was a season to forget in many ways. On the verge of being remembered as an all-time Niner, Debo Samuel's tenure ends with a thud. So 49ers reporters and fans are basically saying, yeah, he's pretty much gone. We don't know where he's going to go, but he won't be playing for us in 2025, basically. And then you had Adam Schefter come out as of February 9th, technically, again, according to when I'm recording this video, for me, it's yesterday, but by the time y'all see it, it'll technically be 2 days ago. But he said the 49ers have granted Debo Samuel and his agent, Tory Dandy, permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver. This comes after Samuel asked San Francisco to trade him during the players' exit meetings after the season. So remember, he asked to be traded in 2022, and then immediately after the season ended in the exit meetings, he already asked, can you please trade me again? The quote is, quote, it was a hard conversation to have with Kyle Shanahan because of the relationship that we have, but I have to do what's best. I'm more than thankful for the Niners giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, but now I think it's best that we find another team, unquote. And then shouts out to Ian Rappaport for announcing that the 49ers are expected to shop wide receiver Debo Samuel this season. He's on the way out. Then U Stadium even pointed out the fact that there were talks about trading Samuel last offseason, but nothing materialized, and he's due $17.5 million in the final year of his 3-year, $71.5 million contract extension that he signed in 2022 after he requested a trade. Who knows if they find a way to pay him again, but this time it looks completely different from the 2022 situation. He's not like super duper in his prime trajectory going up and things like that. It looks like, if anything, he's for real about to leave this time. There's no contract talks between him and the 49ers. I mean, even when they first gave Brandon Ayuk his big extension that he was holding out for, I felt like they basically chose between Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel, and that was before Debo Samuel even had the bad 2024 season. So I think he's pretty much more than gone. Shouts out to Jose Sanchez of Sports Illustrated. He said Debo Samuel was such a negatively impactful player, both production-wise and as a leader for the 49ers this past season. Makes so much sense cutting ties with him. Just didn't believe the 49ers would have actually pulled the trigger, and now it feels like something that may never have been could have happened a couple of years ago. Now the 49ers are willing to do it, so yeah, it's pretty much like no going back from this. And so then there was a report from NFL Trade Rumors, again, not like a super trustworthy source. I mean, the last one, Jeremy Fowler, ended up later on saying, yeah, these rumors are true. I still haven't seen a trustworthy source on Debo Samuel just yet. You have NFL Trade Rumors saying the Commanders are expected to have interest in 49ers Debo Samuel. Adam Peters, who was with San Francisco, is a big fan of Debo Samuel. And I do believe that's true. I'm pretty sure Adam Peters does really like him, but how much does he like him? Does he still like him enough to take on 2025 Debo? This is not 2023 Debo. This is 2025 Debo. And then you also have at Washington Today, who I do like, but this is, again, not a Jeremy Fowler or an Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport saying the Commanders have trade interest in 49ers wide receiver Debo Samuel per source. It would make a lot of sense, obvious connection to Adam Peters, and might not cost a lot of draft compensation for Washington, and Debo is a talented player. Now let's dive into first why we should not trade for him, and then we're going to dive into why we should trade for him, maybe why we should look into it and give him a chance. Well, first of all, I thought it was hilarious back on December 10th, just this past season, where like he went on Twitter and vented his frustration about, he said, I'm not struggling at all, I'm just not getting the ball. And then the Twitter community note said, actually, he leads the team in drops. He is struggling. I thought that was hilarious because, I mean, he's out here lashing out at other people, but really it is his fault. And so people even went from that community notes and was like, okay, so what did you actually do in this most recent game that you played in after, like before you had that tweet the community notes got on you for? And his stats were 2 drops. He tackled his own teammate. He had 2 carries, 3 total rushing yards, 1.45 yards per carry, 16 receiving yards, and a false start penalty. Shouts out to ML Football for pointing that out. That's hilarious. And then he even went a period just this past season when between weeks 11 through 15, the most receiving yards he had in a single game was 22. So we're talking about the most recent version of Debo Samuel not being good. And then also we got to point out the fact that he was getting outproduced by other 49ers receivers. It's not like the 49ers weren't moving the ball. It's not like the 49ers weren't productive in the passing game. It's just that Debo wasn't contributing a lot to it at all. You had Juwan Jennings out there balling out, especially with Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey out. Juwan Jennings was like, all right, I'll step up to the plate. Debo Samuel did not. I mean, Juwan Jennings was averaging 65.8 receiving yards per game this past season. Both Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel have only topped that mark only once in their careers. So Juwan Jennings was having arguably as great of a season as Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk have ever had in their careers with the 49ers. So again, he stepped up. He was like, okay, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk out the way. I guess I'll be the one to eat all of the carries and targets and things like that. I'll be the one to get all of the yardage that they're leaving behind, and Debo Samuel did not. Shouts out to George Carmen. He said Debo Samuel is most famous for his 2021 season, in which all of San Francisco 49ers running backs became hurt. Therefore, he had to be their entire offense, running and receiving, and it inflated his numbers. George Carmen feels like those numbers are inflated. He became a redundant player when the 49ers acquired Christian McCaffrey in 2022, hence the fall off. I think that's a good point. I see him more as a descending player and not a true wide receiver too. I'm not sure I see the fit here. Then you have Tim Meek saying, it's Adam Peters' job to find the next Garrett Wilson, Debo Samuel, or Cooper Kupp through the draft, not trade for them all. Trading and paying aging veterans isn't the way. That's a solid point. And then my boy Jamal, my boy at Let Maul Tell It of the Trap or Dive podcast. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, subscribe to them on YouTube and everything. Check them out. He tweeted, won't be wasting much energy in entertaining Debo Samuel conversations. Let the Raiders, Broncos, Bengals, Dolphins, or whoever else in their fan bases handle that one. So he's completely dismissing the whole Debo Samuel situation. Like, that's not even something I want to even take a part of on Twitter, discussing, debating. We're just not even gonna acknowledge it. And then going back to George Carmen, he said that he feels like we definitely need to go get another wide receiver. We need another wide receiver bad. And he still doesn't even want Debo Samuel. His tweet is, if the Commanders retain pick number 29, they should focus on the offensive line. Good offensive line rarely hits the market in free agency. That's a good point. That's why the free agency market for offensive linemen is always seems to be so weak compared to other position groups. Meanwhile, wide receivers are readily available in free agency and trades. Go get one. This is double considering the weaker wide receiver class. And again, this is not a very deep wide receiver class. So if there were a time you go get a top name in free agency or trade for one, it's now. And he said, even after all of that, no, I still don't want Debo Samuel. So he gave you all of the reasons why we need to do whatever we can to go get a veteran wide receiver, whether it be through free agency and the trade. And Debo Samuel, who is a veteran wide receiver that you have to trade for, he's still like, nah, I'm good. Then shouts out to Ian Hertitz on Twitter. He said Debo finishing as the wide receiver 50 in PPR points per game, despite Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk missing a combined 23 games, is absolutely nuts. He did not step up to the plate. And then on top of all of that, this guy is on AJ Brown's IG story over there celebrating the Super Bowl with him like he's an Eagles fan. Forget that. How about he was actually at the Super Bowl wearing an AJ Brown Eagles jersey? Like, what kind of mess is that? I don't even want him just because of that. The bandwagoning. Like, I mean, the Micah Parsons and how he always is gallivanting with opposing teams. Same thing with Darius Slay of the Eagles. I know Eagles fans have been tired of him like complimenting opposing players on the field and things like that. I don't really like that, man. I don't know why Debo Samuel is not only at the Super Bowl wearing an Eagles jersey, but then celebrating as if he won the Super Bowl when the Eagles won. I don't like that. Like, that's a terrible look to me. I don't even know what he's trying to do. Then shouts out to at GamerBabeJess on Twitter for pointing out the fact that the Niners got the best year out of Debo Samuels anyways. I don't think another team would use him as well as Kyle Shanahan did or does. That's another point. Even if you trade for him, do you believe that Cliff Kingsbury can use him as well as Kyle Shanahan got out of him in his prime years? Is a good point. Also, shouts out to Wayne Breezy. He said the 49ers should just trade Debo Samuel for Cooper Kupp straight up. So 49ers fans are like, please give me Cooper Kupp over Debo Samuel. You even have Jake on Twitter saying, let's get one thing straight. Cooper Kupp greater than sign Debo Samuel. That's how a lot of people feel right now. Shouts out to Dave, the Pats fan. He said, give me Cooper Kupp over Debo Samuel all day long. Other than one great year, Samuel has just been a guy. He's been on the field for most of the games, just hasn't produced. Kupp has missed a lot of games recently, but when he's on the field, he still produces. And that is a fair argument to be made that, yeah, Cooper Kupp's stats don't look that great, but that's because he's been hurt. Whereas Debo Samuel's been out there, he just ain't been doing nothing while he's out there. Also, shouts out, going back to Ian again, he said Debo Samuel's rank in PPR points per game. 2020, he was wide receiver 45. 2021, he was wide receiver 3. 2022, he was wide receiver 28. And then 2023, he was wide receiver 12. And then most recently, he was wide receiver 47, his worst out of the entire 5 years he's been in the NFL. And he basically said that Debo Samuel clearly thrives in odd-numbered years. Studies show that correlation always implies causation by low. Basically trolling and saying that, hey, you know, maybe Debo Samuel will figure it out because 2025 is an odd number year. He typically balls out in odd number years, but that's what I thought was going to happen with Michael Davis, the cornerback that we brought over this season from the Chargers. That didn't happen at all. If anything, he had his worst year of all time with us. He was unplayable. Even compared to Benjamin St. Juste, he was unplayable. So I'm definitely not believing. I know Ian's definitely trolling with that, but I'm not going to believe that. You're not getting me with that one. Then shouts out to Garrett Padell of CBS Sports. He pointed out the fact that Debo Samuel's landing spots and the 49ers grant Pro Bowl wide receiver permission to seek a trade. For the Washington Commanders, he said the Commanders, and now we're talking about why we should give Debo Samuel an opportunity. Why we should just go ahead and say, hey, let's trade a late round draft pick. Let's see what happens. They say the Washington Commanders are set to see their two non-Terry McLaurin starting wide receivers, De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus, which is crazy. Those are our two starting receivers opposite of Terry this past season. We went all the way to the NFC Championship. Wow. Becoming free agents this offseason. Washington is also set to enter the 2025 offseason with the third most effective cap space in the entire league, $68.86 million per overthecap.com. Again, no matter where you look, it's always going to be a different number, but all that matters is that we have the third most. That gives them plenty of resources to play around with on the heels of quarterback Jaden Daniels' 2024 Offensive Rookie of the Year campaign, a year in which Daniels set the NFL rookie records for completion percentage and rushing yards. Washington was a few pieces short of reaching the Super Bowl in year one of Daniels' career, losing to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and Samuels could give the Commanders a young quarterback another Pro Bowl caliber talent to free up number one option Terry McLaurin. I mean, a fair case to be made. That's if you believe he can get back to his at least 2023 self, let alone his 2021 self. Robert Griffin III said the Denver, and he's in favor of all of these trades. He gave us a quote for Cooper Kupp, and he's giving one for Debo Samuel. He said the Denver Broncos should trade for Debo Samuel. Sean Payton said he needs a joker who can be an elite receiver, who can play running back and tight end, create mismatches, and own the middle. That's Debo. Sean Payton will understand how to use his versatility and get him back to his yak attack. And I mean, if Sean Payton could do it, I believe Cliff Kingsbury could do it. So there's that argument. And then also, we do got to point out the fact that when we're talking about wide receivers with the most rushing yards, nobody was doing it better than Debo Samuel for a while. 2021, it was Debo. 2022, out of the entire NFL, again, Debo. 2023, Debo. And then 2024, it was Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. But literally until Debo has arguably the worst year of his career, he's been the wide receiver with the most rushing yards in the NFL. And I know that's a very specific thing to point out, but that is a thing. And so can the Commanders get him back to that version of Debo? Can Cliff Kingsbury do that? Shouts out to Josh Taylor. He said, I do think Washington will be really high up on the list for Debo, especially with the connection to Adam Peters. And I think Washington will be interested as well. Debo would fit the offense extremely well. It all depends on the price. Yeah, the price is completely big on this because we're talking third round, even a fourth round pick. No, never. But if we're talking about late round pick, I don't know. Maybe I'll think about it. Josh Taylor also said Debo is not a bad player at all. He's ready to move on. His strengths fit into Washington's offense tremendously. I agree. I feel like he would be a great fit if he can get back to his old self. That's a big if. He would also not be a one-year rental. That's also a good point. You know, he's not that old. Adam Peters knows Debo too well. If they trade for him, I can guarantee a new deal would take place. We probably would go ahead and extend him while we're at it as well. Shouts out to Spot Track. Speaking of that, if we trade for him, the new team acquires a one-year, $17.5 million deal, and none of it's guaranteed. At the same time, the 49ers will take on a dead cap of $31 million. So, sounds like they're not going to trade him for anything less than probably a fourth or a fifth round pick, which I'm not willing to give up because they're going to have to eat so much dead cap to get rid of him. It's really not even worth it to get rid of him. They're willing to trade him, but they're probably going to have to like really take away some good trade value, some good draft pick value from another team to make up for the dead cap that they're about to eat so that they can increase their chances of making their team still really good and competitive through the draft instead, since they won't necessarily be able to do it through free agency with all of that dead cap they're going to eat up. But again, his $17.5 million that he's owed in 2025, the last year of his deal, is non-guaranteed, which makes it really easy and really flexible for his contract to maybe be extended. You talk to him, maybe we can get him for even cheaper per year and extend him him to like another 2-3 years or something like that, because he's not that old. And shouts out to Grant Paulson. He said, assuming you don't have to do an extension, $17.5 million for a year of Debo Samuel is technically nothing. Significant injury risk. Have to assume he will miss time, but the price is right. You can line him up anywhere wide receiver and use him as a gadget guy in the backfield from time to time as well. And then lastly, shouts out to Mark Tyler for pointing this out though. In the last 4 years, here's the difference in number of games missed between Debo and Kupp. Debo 8, Cooper Kupp 18. Some of you want to argue that Debo missing games, but conveniently forget about this when talking about Kupp, who is also 3 years older and more expensive. All fair points towards leaning towards Debo Samuel. It's kind of like a what's your cup of tea situation. Really, you got to pick your poison because they're both coming with projected negatives. Which negatives do you care about the most? Which ones are like deal breakers for you? Really, that's the ultimate debate between the two guys. I mean, I feel like, to me, I think my biggest problem with Debo Samuel though is that he would cost more in a trade than Cooper Kupp would. And I'm looking at Cooper Kupp like I wouldn't even give up a 6th round pick for him. And the 49ers are going to try to get some picks that I'm definitely not willing to give up in return for Debo Samuel. And then on top of that, I think his best years probably are behind him. I mean, you never know though. Again, with the whole Zach Ertz situation, maybe not. I mean, would getting him make us better? Yes, that plain and simple. You go and get Debo Samuel, you are better than you were before you got him. But does he make you enough better to be worth whatever the 49ers want in a trade and what you'll have to pay him? Like, what does Debo Samuel even want in a new contract potentially? And to me, I don't think it's going to be worth whatever they're asking for. I'm pretty sure it's probably a 4th round pick or higher. I'm good. And maybe you just assume that Jaden Daniels is so great that he can get older Debo out of him rather than very recent Debo. But nah, I think I prefer a guy that we know definitively makes Jaden Daniels better without a question, like a T. Higgins or a Garrett Wilson. Not a guy that Jaden has to make better. I mean, he had to do that all last year, where like he was making the receivers around him better. I want receivers that make him better, please. Like, honestly, if this were last year, like this time last year, 2024, in February, before we knew Jaden was already a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and we weren't hitting the turbo in this roster and trying to win Super Bowls right now, then maybe I'd be down for an experiment in Debo Samuel. Yeah, I know the guys like T. Higgins and Garrett Wilson will cost more money and even in more trade value as far as Garrett Wilson goes, but it's definitely worth it to me to where we know for sure that we're getting a guy that will make Jaden Daniels better when we're in the situation that we are with this team, where the schedule that we're on trying to win Super Bowls right now. It'd be different if we were just kind of experimenting, still kind of like a rebuild phase. Why not take a chance on Debo Samuel? But right now, I need guys that I know for sure are going to ball out for Jaden, and I'm just not sure about Debo Samuel. And then lastly, between Cooper Kupp and Debo Samuel, for me, it just really depends on your point of view, because in Cooper Kupp's favor, you compare him to Debo and say, well, Debo's been healthy and still hasn't produced, so we can't even blame injuries for him. But then in Debo's case, looking at Cooper Kupp the wrong way, you can obviously look at Kupp and say, well, at least Debo is available the vast majority of the season. It may be just a change of scenery and another offensive genius, and Cliff Kingsbury going from Kyle Shanahan to Kingsbury could get him back to what he once was. And Debo is significantly younger, and Debo has not played with a Jaden Daniels. So, you know, maybe there's that. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, shouts out to Garrett Ferguson for pointing out the fact that 2025 Debo Samuel is not 2021 Debo Samuel. There's a reason for his fall off in San Francisco. He'd be a fun addition to the offense if he doesn't mind wide receiver 3 money and a wide receiver 3 role, which takes me back to my last point. Both of these guys, just to be safe, you have to assume they're wide receiver 3s. So whatever you do to get Cooper Kupp or Debo Samuel or whatever, you have to assume that you're probably still going to take receiver in the 1st round or still pursue a T. Higgins or a Garrett Wilson. Now, are you willing to pay all of that money to wide receivers and we still have all of these defensive issues right now? I'm not sure, man. Again, if you trade for Debo Samuel or Cooper Kupp, just know they're coming here to be wide receiver 3s. You still have to do whatever it takes to get a wide receiver 2. So are you willing to eat up all of that attention, all of that cap space, trade capital, to draft I mean, you trade for Debo Samuel with like a 4th or a 5th round pick. Then you got to turn around and draft a wide receiver in the 1st round, like the Amuka kid from Ohio State or even Luther Burden. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of draft capital towards those guys. Or you pay Debo Samuel after trading for him, and then you still try to go get T. Higgins or even trade for Garrett Wilson. That's a lot of money spent to just the wide receiver position already, on top of the fact that you're probably going to start looking at extending Terry McLaurin a couple of years and paying him more money as well. So that's a lot, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, and still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate you for making it this far. I didn't expect this video to be 50 minutes. At this point, I should have just broken this up into 2 separate videos. I didn't think I would talk about them this long. That's my bad. But I know a lot of y'all do prefer the longer videos. So, hey, man, I really appreciate y'all. Again, if you made it this far in the video, big salute to you. Really appreciate that. Also, as promised to the trivia question, the answer is Taylor Heinicke, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell. Taylor Heinicke 9 games, Carson Wentz 7 games, Sam Howell. Remember the last game of the season against Dallas that we won and had us believing we were really about to do something going into that 2023 season. Either way though, man, really appreciate y'all. Of course, let me know in the comment section. This is going to be a really interesting one, so I can't wait to see the comments on who y'all prefer between Cooper Kupp or Debo Samuel, or you just no to both of them, or maybe you're yes to both of them. Just let me know how you feel about the whole situation. Let me know if you're looking at this as like a super best case scenario thing where you get Cooper Kupp in free agency and maybe you trade a low pick for Debo Samuel, you get both. I don't know. Let me know how y'all feel about all of this. And of course, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.